It will never be the same again, I don't think. Not in so many ways.
Tonight, it's been almost a year since Mud Lake Labrador was hit with the worst flood in its history. Many residents think the reason was the construction of a nearby power dam. Cherokee actor Wes Studi makes history at this year's Oscars.
These were formerly safes, in-room safes for the hotels.
And in the Northwest Territories, meet one man who is turning junk into high-efficiency wood stoves. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. The Thunder Bay Police are back under the microscope as Ontario's police watchdog released a disturbing report on how the force handled the death of a First Nations man in 2015. Willow Fiddler was at the press conference in Thunder Bay today.
Leaders called for the resignation of Thunder Bay Police Chief in a press conference Monday morning, after complaints of misconduct were found to be substantiated in a report by the Office of the Independent Police Review Director in the death of Ojibwe man Stacey DeBungy.
Because of all these facts, I'm here to call for the resignation of Chief Lebec. And if he refuses to resign, I'm calling for the board to fire him.
DeBungy's body was found in the McIntyre River in 2015. Family of the man said they had immediate questions and concerns about his death.
Felt I was treated wrong just when I went to go for that little meeting with the detective, and he kind of brushed everything aside.
In a media release 3 hours after his body was discovered, police said DeBungy's death was not suspicious. That was just one of the red flags for Jim Leonard, who was chief of Rainy River First Nation at the time of DeBungy's death and a complainant in the OIPRD review of DeBungy's death investigation.
And the more we looked into it, the more our concerns, we questioned those concerns. With the release of this report, it just validates all those concerns we have. And as Chief McGinnis has stated, we knew things were bad, but we didn't think they were this bad. With every page, that 126 pages, it states after deficiency after deficiency after deficiency. Too numerous to mention here today.
The 126-page report says there is enough evidence to substantiate neglect of duty and misconduct by the lead investigator in the case.
It's obvious in this case that somebody made the assumption that it's just another drunk Indian rolling in the river. And that's the way the whole investigation was conducted from day one until today. It's business as usual.
Thunder Bay Police issued a statement that they would not be commenting on the report because they are legally barred from doing so under the Police Services Act. Willow Fiddler, APTN National News, Thunder Bay.
The man who was once British Columbia's youngest mayor has been charged with sex crimes against a person under the age of 16. 27-year-old Luke Strimbold, who was the mayor of Burns Lake from 2011 to 2016, faces 24 charges of sexual touching, sexual interference, and sexual exploitation for someone under the age of 16. Charges date back to 2015 and 2016 when he abruptly resigned following his re-election as mayor. Strimbold's first court appearance is on April 6th in Burns Lake.
I was very angry at what the news came out of what happened. He worked for us in 2 different occasions. One, he worked at our rediscovery camp, and that's a summer camp for kids. And the other one, when he was stream cleaning for our fisheries department. I did have my meeting with the RCMP this morning, and I was assured that the young people involved are not Lake Babine. You know, it's an ongoing investigation.
Six Nations police are keeping a close watch on a house located right beside an elementary school on the territory near Brantford, Ontario. Some Six Nations parents went to the house over the weekend to confront the owner after drug paraphernalia was found on school grounds. Beverly Andrews is at the school and she's joining us on the phone now. Beverly, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us what's happening right now and whether a search warrant was executed?
Right now, no search warrant has been executed. The roads are currently being blocked off, but local people can still drive through. The police are out on the road. No search warrants have been executed because the local police service is waiting for the OPP to assist them because they claimed this morning in the meeting that everyone had that they didn't have the training or the proper equipment to go into a house with armed occupants.
Bev, there was a meeting between school officials and parents. Can you tell us much about that?
Well, the parents said that the school was open to suggestions and that they will be implementing a fence with a card system in the spring so that only authorized people can have access to the schoolyard. But in the short term, they don't really have any solutions other than going and trying to clean it up.
And so what are the local authorities prepared to do?
Well, this morning, Chief Glenn Licker said that he is willing to do whatever they can to mitigate these problems, that they know that this is an ongoing problem. But they were also saying that it was great that the local community has gotten involved and started, wanting to demand action, and it is helping them communicate to the OPP how much help that they need.
Bev, has anyone said why possible criminal activity has been allowed to continue right next to an elementary school?
Well, the gentleman who lives here has been living here for years and years. He raised his children here, and the parents just kind of think that people have become apathetic, that it's something that's just been happening for so long that people just kind of let it happen. But now that there's paraphernalia and other dangerous things showing up, they thought it was time for action to really solve this problem and get this looked after.
We'll have to leave it there, Bev. We'll look forward to your report coming, and thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Dennis.
More than 750 climate experts and city mayors are in Edmonton for the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The discussions there focus on how cities can help reduce their environmental footprint. APTN's Chris Stewart went to one panel which looked at ways the Blackfoot can integrate their traditional ways and help the climate.
Respected academic and educator Leroy Littlebear, a Blackfoot from the Blood Tribe in southern Alberta, pulled no punches when he told the panel attendees that humanity's days are numbered if we stay on the current path with the way we are treating the planet.
We live in a very narrow spectrum of ideal conditions, and if those ideal conditions are not there, we're going to go the way of the dinosaurs and Neanderthal man.
Kansi Fox is the Environmental Protection Manager with the Blood Tribe. She says members there want to do more to help the environment. For the past 5 years, Blood Tribe has held a conference with members on how best to live sustainably with Mother Earth.
And it's all participation based, so we go out on the land and teach about our connections to the land and why it's important that we know these things. It relates to our identity, to our health, and to how we treat the environment.
Kansi Fox says the conference is an ideal way to share ideas with other nations and hundreds of experts in the field to find a way to stop climate change.
Working with more people, other First Nations, scientists, different languages, and I'm hoping that everybody takes something away of, well, this is what was said at, this session at the IPCC. Maybe we can work on that, move forward on that, because it sparked an idea.
Whether it's 100 years from now, 500 years from now, in other words, are we going to be around in 50,000 years, say? If we want to be around, then we need to change our practices and our ways, our approaches to how we do things.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Time for a quick break, and then we're off to Mud Lake, where residents are still reeling from a flood last spring. Here's a look at Tuesday's weather forecast. Starting on the east coast, a rain-snow mix and +2 in Halifax, 0 in Fredericton. Sunny and -1 in La Grande and Happy Valley, Goose Bay. 0 in Saguenay, Quebec City and Val d'Or. Cloudy and +7 in Windsor, +4 in Sarnia, 2 above in London. -6 for Thunder Bay, -8 in Sioux Lookout and Big Trout Lake. Over to northern Manitoba, sunny and -13 in Churchill. More snow and a high of -2 in Gimli Harbor, -7 under the sun in Winnipeg. In Saskatchewan, -4 in Estevan and Yorkton, -7 in Saskatoon, -5 on Tuesday in La Ronge and Buffalo Narrows. Welcome back. Residents of Mud Lake Labrador are still reeling from a flood last spring. Many community members attribute the unprecedented flooding to the Muskrat Falls hydro project upstream. Now, with warmer weather on the horizon, they fear not enough has been done to protect their lives. Here's APTN's Justin Brake.
Peaceful, free, and safe are just some of the ways residents affectionately describe Mud Lake. Their homes scattered along the banks of a winding channel that empties into the Churchill River in central Labrador.
Oh, big thick one there.
But on May 17th, 2017, everything changed.
It will never be the same again, I don't think. Not in so many ways.
Water flowing in real fast here now in Mud Lake, up to the top of the bridge almost.
In a matter of hours, frigid, icy waters inundated the community, flooding homes, threatening lives. The Innu call it Modnek, part of their traditional homeland of Nadassinan. Most of today's residents are the descendants of Inuit and settler families.
It begins as a very tiny settlement of probably a couple of families in the middle 1800s.
Trappers traded their furs to the Hudson Bay outpost at Northwest River. Loggers then arrived following the establishment of a mill. A food source, a travel route, and powerful force not to be reckoned with. Like their ancestors, Mud Lakers have a deep understanding of and respect for what locals call the Grand River. On the evening of May 16th, water levels rose like they do each year during spring thaw. But then, with most asleep in their beds, disaster hit.
That's when the water just started coming, bubbling right up through the floor and in through the doors, and in seconds, it was just like that.
Couldn't see a darn thing. It was snowing and raining and cold. The kids, we had to wake them up. They didn't know what was going on. Be woke up middle of the night, throwing in your snowsuit and then putting the boat in the dark. Chunks of ice and logs. We had no life jackets out for the year. They were still packed away.
It got like that every spring, but it just kept on going. It didn't stop this time.
Many fled their homes in the dark. Others were trapped.
I didn't know if we were going to die. The water was freezing cold. They had no life jackets.
At dawn, the emergency evacuation began, and then the waiting. Nalcor Energy, the Crown Corporation building the Muskrat Falls Hydro Dam 30 kilometers upstream, immediately denied any role in the flood. A week later, their vice president told flood victims they were being reasonable in pointing their finger at Nalcor.
This is the very first year that the project was operational, and the very first year we have a flood.
Politicians visited the community to see the damage firsthand. They promised residents help and an independent review to determine the cause of the flood. In October 2017, the province released the results of that review. It determined the ice jam flood event of May 17, 2017, along the lower reach of the Churchill River, cannot be attributed to the operations of the Muskrat Falls spillway.
Everybody felt so defeated because we don't trust Nalcor, we don't trust the government, we trust each other.
Robert Way grew up along the banks of the Churchill River and now researches environmental change in Labrador. He says while the report may be accurate in its assessment of the flood, It also highlights reasons why the dam could lead to future flooding.
Ice monitoring and the impacts of it on people has not been done to a sufficient degree since this project was initiated.
Nearly 10 months later, some are still displaced, like Jim Brown and his wife, who are living in a subsidized house in Goose Bay until they can start rebuilding with government compensation.
And they said, that's it, you know, you can take it or leave it. And then living here in Goose Bay, it's not where we want to be, you know, and like this is not our home.
A lot of sinning skidoo.
Brown and others say the government is not compensating for snowmobiles lost in the flood, their only source of transportation in winter. MHA Perry Trimper, Premier Dwight Ball, and MP Yvonne Jones did not respond to interview requests for this story. And Nalcor said no one was available to talk about Mud Lake. How the dam impacts water and ice downstream is just one of the big issues. Residents also fear a dam breach and catastrophic flooding.
There's more sandbars than water almost.
Broomfield spent her adolescence canoeing upstream to Muskrat Falls to pick berries with her family.
But we knew then the banks, the sand banks that we used to, crawl up that bank, go up that bank, was all sand and mud.
The North Spur is a landmass comprised primarily of sand and marine clay that will act as a natural dam at Muskrat Falls. Critics have said for years the spur may not hold once Nalcor fills the reservoir. Randy McMillan was one of the drillers hired in 2013 to collect samples for geotechnical data.
It's just a typical job that you would do for any other customer. In this particular instance, though, it was an anomaly to me because we never once ever hit bedrock. So every 40 feet there would be some clay, water, kind of like a cake. I'm adamant that these people downstream, life's in jeopardy. It's in jeopardy.
You're fine? Yes, my dog.
Feeling ignored by the province and Nalcor, last summer Best took her concerns to the Muskrat Falls site, where land protectors were arrested the previous fall after forming a blockade. She defied the injunction still in place to keep people away and took a few steps through the gate. Best was arrested and spent the night in jail.
We need somebody to come in and do this assessment. And if it comes back that it's safe and you guys are not in danger of the North Spur breaking, well, good. You know what? That'll give me some comfort.
Labrador strong.
Land protectors have been calling for an independent review of the North Spur so people living downstream can feel safe. Nalcor's own commissioned review of the spur determined that the area has been sufficiently stabilized, but few trust that conclusion.
And I come to this as a public policy researcher.
David Vardy, an economist, former public servant, and former chair of the province's Public Utilities Board, says there may be a reason why Nalcor and the government are reluctant to launch an independent review of the spur.
If we look too hard, we may find an unsolvable problem which may end up with closing down the project.
And we've had people put in hospital for different things.
Best says the stress is taking a toll.
I mean, people are waking up in the middle of the night and just checking and make sure the water is not too high.
And if they wouldn't have had the boat ready to take them, they would have been dead.
The prospect of resettling the community has been raised, but many say they don't want to leave.
There's no amount of money in the world that they could offer me to move from where I am. I want to stay here. This is my home. This is the life we've built. This is where we want to raise our family.
With spring only weeks away, all the residents of Mud Lake can do is wait.
The damage is done. The river is changed forever, for good or ill. And Mud Lake is immediately, directly at the receiving end.
Justin Brake, APTN National News, Mud Lake.
Quite the story, and for much more on the flooding in Mud Lake, go to aptnnews.ca and look for Justin Brake's full online story. A well-known Cherokee actor made history last night at the Oscars. More on that coming up after the break. Here's the rest of Tuesday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta, -9 in High Level and Grand Prairie. -8 in Edmonton, Red Deer, Calgary, and Medicine Hat. Over on the west coast, +8 in Victoria and Vancouver. -2 in Smithers and Prince George. -5 in Fort Nelson. in Yukon, minus 11 in Dawson City and Watson Lake. Over to NWT, minus 9 in Trout Lake, Yellowknife, and Ray Lakes. Minus 18 in Sax Harbor, minus 10 in Inuvik, minus 15 in Colville Lake. Over to Nunavut, minus 15 in Arviet, Baker Lake, and Repulse Bay. Minus 20 in Joe Haven and Pangertung, minus 33 in Resolute. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. Our top story tonight.
The Laughing Drum with host Tim Fontaine, Tuesdays following APTN National News.
Welcome back. Tonight, APTN National News launches Perspectives, APTN, a brand new French talk show. In the first episode, we meet with two influential documentary filmmakers. Our Quebec reporter Danielle Rochette meets with executive producer Michel Rouleau and author-director Kim Obobsawin. They discuss the shock documentary, This Silence That Kills Us. It's a film about the history of missing and murdered Aboriginal women and girls across Canada. In the film, the Honey Fontaine from the Saugeen First Nation near Winnipeg makes a troubling comparison.
If we know that the numbers are, let's just say 1,200, which we know that that's not accurate, but that translates into 36,000 missing and murdered white women and girls. And I would suggest to you that the response would be very, very different.
Perspectives APTN will debut tonight at 10:30, right after the documentary This Silence That Kills. A well-known Native American actor made history at the Academy Awards Sunday night. Cherokee actor Wes Studi was the first Native American to present at the Oscars during its 90-year run.
Over the years, 90 years of Academy Awards, a number of performances and movies with military themes have been honored at the Oscars.
Studi was on hand to present a montage of war movies dedicated to men and women who have served in the military. The actor spoke about his own time serving during the Vietnam War. Studi is best known for his roles in Academy Award-winning films Dances with Wolves and The Last of the Mohicans. He ended his presentation by speaking in Cherokee, where he thanked veterans and fellow Cherokees who have served.
Horsio ale alehelisti iji yoskijik ale iji jadalake wadon.
And that is your APTN National News for this Monday. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
With wrap-around moccasins and holes in my rubber, wasn't very much, but I hurried off to school just to find the white kids laughing and making fun of me and my frozen battered sandwiches my cook made for me.